All right, welcome back. Let's go ahead and dive into the middle part of our Standard 10. We're going to start off with global conflict and setting the stage. So, World War I was much more than a European conflict. Australia and Japan entered on the Allies' side, while the Ottoman Turks and Bulgaria joined on the Central Powers side. As the war raged on, both sides looked to gain more troops to fight on their side. America joins the fight. In 1917, the focus of the war shifted to the high seas. The Germans began to intensify their use of submarines. In January, they announced that their submarines would sink without warning any ship in the waters around Britain. This policy was called unrestricted submarine warfare. The Lusitania. On May 7, 1915, a German U-boat, or submarine, sank the passenger liner, the Lusitania. The attack left 1,198 people dead, including 128 Americans. Germany claimed the ship was carrying ammunition, which gave them the right to blow it up. Turns out the Germans were right. The Lusitania was secretly carrying ammunition. So even though the American public was outraged, the government did not decide to join World War I. The U.S. wanted to stay out of Europe's problems. So here's a picture of the Lusitania. Obviously, this is not real footage. This is an artist's rendition of when the boat sunk. All right, so the U.S. enters on the Allied side in 1917. So what is it that brings the U.S. into the war? It's called the Zimmerman Telegram, also known as the Zimmerman Note. It was a telegram written from the German Foreign Secretary to the Mexican government stating that Germany would help Mexico reconquer the land it had lost to the U.S. if Mexico joined the war as a German ally. So the telegram is the last straw. On April 2nd, 1917, the U.S. President Woodrow Wilson is going to ask Congress to declare war on Germany. This is when the U.S. had officially entered the war on the side of the Allies. There is a telegram that was intercepted by the U.S. of Germany asking Mexico for their help. All right, so U.S. President Woodrow Wilson. Who is he? He was a 28th president of the U.S. from 1913 to 1921. So war affects the home front. In the 3 years the war had been raging, millions of lives had been lost and everyone's lives had been changed. The war did not simply affect just the soldiers involved, but it's going to affect civilians as well. So to win the war, every man, woman, and child had to do their part. So total war. Total war is when the countries devote all of their resources to the war effort. So wartime governments took control of the economy. Governments told factories what to produce and how much to produce. Many facilities were converted into munitions factories, and every able-bodied citizen is going to be put to work. So unemployment is going to disappear. Rationing. So many goods were in short supply that the government began to ration them. Under this system, people could buy small amounts of items that were important to the war effort. Eventually, most items began to be rationed, which included butter, sugar, gasoline, shoe leather, and many more items. Here's a cute little picture of a boy in his ration book. He is purchasing what looks like a large can of V8. And to get this can of V8 in his ration book, he has a little coupon that says he can purchase it, and he turns in his coupon and he gets his V8. All right, propaganda. Propaganda is one-sided information. It is designed to persuade, to keep up morale, and to support the war. Examples of propaganda are advertising campaigns, newspaper articles, and radio broadcasts. They would all be centered around pro-war themes. The government also censored news about the war, fearing that honest reporting would turn people against the war. All anti-war activity was suppressed or covered up. So here are some examples of propaganda posters. Of course, we all recognize this guy, Uncle Sam of the United States. He wants you for the U.S. Army. Up here, it says corn, the food of the nation. Serve some way every meal. Appetizing, nourishing, economical. Down here it says, gee, I wish I were a man. I'd join the Navy. Up here we have, sow the seeds of victory. Plant and raise your own vegetables. And down here it says, beat back the Hun with Liberty Bonds. Pretty cool. All right, women and the war. Total war meant that governments turned to help from women as never before. Women are going to replace the men in factories, in offices and shops. Women are going to build tanks, munitions. They're going to plow the fields. Women are going to pave streets. They're going to run hospitals. Women also saw the war firsthand. They worked as nurses on the front lines and they saw everything. Women's efforts changed the view of their capabilities outside the home. All right, so let's now turn to on the downward slope of World War I. So the Allies win the war. So with the U.S. finally in the war, the balance, it seemed, was going to tip in the Allies' favor. But before that could happen, unforeseen events occurred in Russia, which gave Germany a victory on the Eastern Front and the ability to focus all of their troops on the Western Front. So Russia's going to withdraw. In March of 1917, civil unrest in Russia, due in large part to war-related food and fuel shortages, they are going to force Tsar Nicholas II to step down from the throne, to abdicate the throne. So as a result, the Russian army refused to continue fighting in World War I. In November of 1917, Vladimir Lenin is going to seize power and the Communist Party is going to take control of Russia. In March of 1918, the Germans and the Russians signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which officially ended the war along that Eastern Front. The Central Powers are going to collapse. In March of 1918, the Germans mounted one final assault on that Western Front between France and Germany. By May, they had reached the Marne River and they were only 40 miles outside of Paris, France. Unfortunately, by this time, the German army had weakened. It was difficult for supplies and fresh troops to reach the Marne. The Allies sensed the problems with the German army, and with the help of 140,000 new U.S. troops, the Allies are going to launch a counterattack. In July of 1918, the U.S. troops helped the Allies to steadily push towards Germany. Soon, the Central Powers began to crumble. First, Bulgaria is going to surrender, then the Ottoman Turks, and Austria-Hungary, and finally, the Germans surrender. On November 9th, 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II is going to step down from the throne. On November 11th, 1918, an armistice, or an agreement to stop fighting, is going to be signed by the Allies and by Germany. The outcomes and global effects. So World War I was unlike any war that the world had seen for many reasons. It was a war on a global scale. Death and destruction were greater than any war prior. 8.5 million soldiers died, and 21 million were wounded. Civilians died because of starvation, slaughter, and disease. Altogether, an entire generation of Europeans was wiped out. The total cost of the war was $338 billion. That was back then, $338 billion. Colonies that participated in the war increased their demands for independence from their mother country. And the end of the Russian Imperial, the Ottoman, the German, and Austro-Hungarian empires. So lots of outcomes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that concludes Standard 10A, and we are getting ready to jump in Standard 10B, and we are almost done with this Standard 10 dealing with World War I. If you have any questions, send me an email or come see me. I look forward to seeing you guys on the flip side.